She fled in a police car after being caught cheating. A whole chase ensued. When my wife was discovered in bed with another man, she fled, and in her desperation, she stole a police car and took off. In the end, they arrested her, and now she cries from prison. I will never forget that day, I'm sure of that. It was a Saturday night, around 8 o'clock. I was at home taking care of the children while my wife was relaxing with her friends, like every weekend. That night, I was in the living room with my kids, my 7-year-old daughter and my 5-year-old son. They were playing quietly with their Legos while I helped them. That's when someone knocked on the door. I got up, and when I opened it, I found 2 police officers. One was older, gray-haired, with an unfriendly face. The other was younger, he looked like he was fresh out of the academy. They asked me if I had spoken to my wife, and it was at that moment I felt a chill run down my spine. I told them no, that as far as I knew, she was meeting with her friends. They asked to come in. I let them pass, not understanding anything. As soon as they entered, the younger one looked at me seriously and told me that my wife, Samantha, had gotten into serious trouble and that they needed my help to try and stop her. That sentence left me paralyzed. Everything echoed in my head as if I had been hit. Trying not to alarm the children, I asked my oldest daughter to take her brother to their room and wait there until I called them. Once they were gone, the younger officer asked for permission to turn on the television. I said yes, although I still didn't understand anything. He turned on the TV and found the news channel. What I saw then took my breath away. A police chase. On the screen, the caption appeared, "Breaking news. Woman steals patrol car. Is on the run." But the worst part was what I saw in the corner of the screen. Not only was there a photo of Samantha, but also her full name. I could barely react. The image was taken from a helicopter and clearly showed a police vehicle being followed by at least 6 patrol cars. I felt like the world was collapsing on top of me. I dropped onto the couch, unable to process anything. What was I seeing? What was happening? The officer explained that there had been an altercation with one of the neighbors in the neighborhood. When the police arrived at the scene, Samantha, in a panic, took advantage of a moment of carelessness, got into the patrol car, and then fled the area without saying anything. They had been following her ever since. He told me this in a calm tone, almost as if trying not to cause me to have a breakdown, but nothing could soften the gravity of what I was hearing. Then he told me they needed my help to convince her to stop before something worse happened. They had already tried to stop her via the radio, but she wasn't responding, she wasn't obeying orders, and they didn't want to use force unless it was unavoidable. They explained that they could communicate with her using the patrol car's radio. Although Samantha couldn't speak unless she picked up the microphone, she could hear me through the vehicle's loudspeaker. I was still in shock, but I nodded. They connected me to the central dispatch, which then patched the signal directly to the patrol car Samantha was in. They handed me the microphone and asked me to speak calmly. Trying to contain myself, I began to speak slowly. "Samantha, honey, it's me. The police explained to me what's happening. Don't try to respond, just listen. Please, keep your hands on the wheel and try to calm down. Everything is going to be okay. Just pull over to the side of the road and stop the patrol car. Whatever happened, we will sort it out together." As I spoke, I watched the news screen. Everything was live. In silence, I could only wait for some reaction, but it didn't seem like Samantha had any intention of stopping. The officer next to me told me they were already preparing a police blockade a few streets away and that it was urgent I convince her before she reached that point. I took the microphone again. "Sam, listen to me. You are approaching a barrier. Please, stop. Just that. Don't do anything else, please." And then, on the broadcast, the journalist narrating the situation mentioned that the vehicle's speed was decreasing. For a second, I thought I was convincing her. I clung to that idea desperately. I heard the officers on the radio say that they could already see her from the barrier. She was arriving. I pleaded again. Do it for our children, Samantha. Don't do it for me. Do it for them. Stop the car. You still have time. And it seemed like it. For a moment, the aerial shot showed the patrol car almost stopping. It was surrounded. But then, without explanation, Samantha kept moving forward. She didn't do it at high speed, but just enough to hit the barrier. The impact was sharp. The car struck the containment line directly, and one of the officers who was in the area was hit by the vehicle's push. The patrol car finally stopped. The police didn't hesitate. They rushed the car, surrounding it with weapons raised. For a second, I feared the worst. I thought they would shoot, but they didn't. They just shouted for her to get out with her hands up. And then the door opened. I saw a completely naked woman emerge, staggering. And when the camera zoomed in, I had no doubt left. It was Samantha. They handcuffed her in seconds, giving her no time for anything, and put her in another vehicle, an armored SWAT van that had arrived at the scene. I kept watching the television in silence. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. The officer beside me touched my shoulder and told me we had to go to the station. I barely reacted. With what little mental clarity I had left, I called my mother, who didn't live too far away, and asked her to come urgently to take care of the children. I didn't explain much, only told her it was serious. As soon as I hung up, my cell phone exploded. Messages, calls, notifications. The first one was from Samantha's mother, but I wasn't in the right mind to answer her. I went to see my children. I hugged them, not knowing what to tell them, how to explain something that even I couldn't understand. My mother arrived a few minutes later. As soon as she walked in, she asked me what was happening, and I just told her that Samantha was detained and I had to go to the station to understand everything. I promised to call her as soon as I knew more. I left for the police station, unable to think clearly. I don't remember ever feeling so bewildered. Everything was spinning: the lights, the sounds in my ears, the officer's words. I didn't understand anything. When I arrived at the station, things got worse. Nobody explained anything to me. They wouldn't let me see her, and the officers seemed more interested in filling out paperwork than in clarifying the situation. I managed to get a lawyer thanks to a contact, but he couldn't do much that night either. All I could do was wait. And that's when I saw her. Among the people coming in and out of the place, Marixa appeared, one of Samantha's friends, one of those who theoretically should have been with her that night. When she saw me, she turned pale. She tried to turn around and go back to her car, but I stopped her. I wasn't going to let her escape. I was going to find out what was happening. Whatever it took. Marixa, I said, stepping in front of her. What the hell happened? A couple of months earlier, Samantha had told me she felt exhausted, that work, the house, and the children left no space for her. She asked to have her own days off, a small break from the routine, and it seemed fair to me. That's how we agreed that she would spend Saturday afternoons with her friends who lived nearby. They would meet at a neighbor's house to relax, talk, and, according to her, have a glass of wine while they chatted about anything. It seemed like a good idea. Samantha started smiling again. She seemed calmer. She told me those meetings helped her relieve stress, that she felt understood and supported. I didn't suspect anything strange, but over time, her conversations began to revolve around one person, Romina. Romina was a neighbor who lived a few blocks from our house. I didn't know her personally, but I knew which house was hers, one of the prettiest in the area. Samantha often spoke to me about her, though not with admiration, but with resentment disguised as mockery. She said Romina was stuck up, that her husband had money, that she thought she was perfect. She told me gossip that I barely listened to, unimportant things, that they had bought a new car, remodeled the kitchen, that they held dinners with wealthy friends. Romina, from what I knew, was not part of the group of friends. They didn't invite her to their gatherings. In fact, she had become the target of all their gossip, but I never imagined the hatred ran so deep. And now, standing there in front of Marixa, I understood that all of this had to do with that woman. Marixa tried to dodge the subject, but I insisted. I wasn't going to let her leave without telling me what she knew. I asked her how on earth Samantha had ended up naked, fleeing in a patrol car. She told me she couldn't tell me anything, that she didn't know, but I was beside myself. I yelled at her that this was no time for secrets, that what was happening was very serious. And she covered her face and began to sob. It took her several minutes to calm down, but in the end, she spoke. And what she told me was so absurd that at first, I thought she was lying. The Saturday gatherings had turned into a kind of gossip ritual against Romina. All the women in the group hated her, not because Romina had done anything to them, but because she represented everything they were not: young, beautiful, kind, and married to a successful man. Instead of being happy for their neighbor, they dedicated themselves to badmouthing her, looking for flaws, inventing rumors. Apparently, Romina never gave them a reason to hate her, which made their envy worse. Several times, according to Marixa, they went out at night to walk near her house, pretending to take out the trash or walk the dog, just to spy on her. They wanted to find something on her: a lover, a secret, anything that would stain her image as a perfect woman. But since they never found anything, they convinced themselves that if the problem wasn't her, it must be her husband. And that's when Samantha had the most idiotic and cruel idea anyone could have had. She said that if she seduced Romina's husband, they would prove that their marriage was a sham, that Romina wasn't as happy or as perfect as she appeared. And the worst part is, the others followed her lead. According to Marixa, that night hadn't been the first time. A week before the disaster, they had already tried it. The group invited Romina to one of their gatherings with the excuse of including her. Meanwhile, Samantha took the opportunity to go to her house and test the husband. That first time, according to Marixa, they didn't go all the way, but Samantha gave him oral sex in the living room. The following week, they decided to repeat the play. But this time, Samantha was willing to go all the way. They planned it the same way. They invited Romina to the group while Samantha slipped away to meet her husband. Only this time, Romina noticed something strange. Romina asked for Samantha, and one of the women, either drunk or simply malicious, answered with a laugh that she should better ask her husband. Romina got up and ran out of the house. The others, alarmed, tried to follow her, but Romina was faster. What happened next, Romina herself told me a few days later, when I went to find her to apologize for what my wife had done. She told me she already suspected something was going on, because those women had always been hypocritical and rude. But upon entering her house that night, she heard the moans. She didn't need anything more. She told me, "My father didn't raise a fool who stays quiet while others mock her." She opened the closet, took out the shotgun her father had given her when she turned 18, and went straight to the bedroom. She kicked the door open and aimed without hesitation. Samantha screamed, tried to escape, but Romina didn't let her. She pointed it at her bare chest and pushed her against the wall, furious. Then she forced them both, her husband and Samantha completely naked, out to the front yard at gunpoint. Outside, the other friends had already arrived, running. They were all in shock seeing the scene. Romina, furious, shouted that she was not a woman who accepted mockery, that she would take justice into her own hands if anyone dared to humiliate her. Samantha was crying, trembling, trying to cover herself with her hands. The terrified friends called the police. A patrol car arrived minutes later. The officers tried to calm Romina, who was still pointing the gun at the two cheaters. Finally, Romina lowered the weapon. She finally told the officers that the shotgun wasn't loaded, that she had only wanted to give them a scare. One of the policemen approached her slowly, and she, still trembling with rage, handed them the weapon with her hands up. Everything seemed to be over. But while the officers were distracted, Samantha, who was behind them, seized the moment. In a split second, she got up from the ground and started running toward the patrol car, which had been left parked with the door open. No one reacted in time. By that point, there were many people outside. The neighbors had come out into the street upon hearing the screams. Some were filming with their phones, and right in front of all of them, my wife, naked and out of her mind, got into the patrol car. The officers realized it immediately, but before they could do anything, Samantha locked the doors from the inside. One of them yelled at her to get out, not to make things worse. Romina told me it was all so fast they barely processed it. Samantha stared straight ahead with a vacant expression, and suddenly the engine roared. To everyone's astonishment, she put the vehicle in gear and fled the scene. That's how it all began. While I was taking care of our children, my wife was stealing a police patrol car. The officers immediately called for backup, but nobody thought she would get that far. They thought she would stop a few blocks away, that she would give up, but no. Samantha hit the gas and kept going without looking back. On her way out, she hit a motorcycle, knocking the rider off. Luckily, the man only suffered scrapes. Then she sideswiped 2 more parked cars and kept accelerating until she reached the highway. That's when things spun completely out of control. Patrol cars began to chase her, and within minutes, the news was on every channel. Traffic cameras captured the chase from different angles, and helicopters joined the spectacle. When the police realized she wouldn't stop without intervention, they decided to find me. They wanted me to try to convince her over the radio because they believed she could still listen to reason, but it didn't work. As the days passed, I began to understand the details, piece by piece. At first, everything was confusion. The police reports, the witness statements, the videos circulating on social media. The image of Samantha fleeing naked in a patrol car went viral. Fortunately, no one died. The most affected was the officer who was hit when she crashed into the blockade. He suffered a leg injury but recovered. That prevented the case from escalating to a worse level. Still, the charges were serious. Samantha was charged with theft of state property, reckless driving, damage to public property, and injury to an officer. Her public defender tried to argue that she was in shock, that she had acted out of panic, but the videos sank her. There wasn't much to defend. When the hearing was held, the courtroom was full of journalists. Her case had become a media circus. The headline spoke of the fugitive lover, or the woman who stole a patrol car after being discovered naked. I no longer participated in any of it. I decided I would not see her again. The only time we spoke was that first night when I still didn't understand what had happened. She was in shock and didn't say a single word. She didn't even look me in the eye. After that, I cut her out completely. I started the divorce proceedings while she was still in preventive detention. I refused to pay for her lawyer, so a state-appointed one took her case. My priority was my children and keeping us far away from that scandal. The judicial process moved quickly because the case was very clear. The prosecutors wanted to make an example of her, a person who put the lives of civilians and officers at risk. In the end, the judge handed down a sentence of 10 years in prison. It wasn't an exaggeration, considering the combined charges. I was summoned as part of the civil process, but my lawyer handled everything. The only thing I asked for was to secure full custody of my children and keep the house. The judge, influenced by the media attention on the case, sided with me on everything. The divorce was resolved in my favor. I got the house, custody, and no obligation to pay her alimony. Legally, Samantha got nothing. The same state lawyer who represented her in the criminal case filed an appeal, but it was rejected without discussion. Several months have passed since everything ended. Sometimes I still wake up thinking it was all a nightmare, but then I look at my children and understand that the best thing I could do was to cut ties with that disaster completely. Samantha's mother has come to my house several times. She calls, insists, begs me to go see her, to talk to her, to forgive her. She says Samantha is not doing well, that she can't stand being locked up, that she needs to see the children. But I am clear that I will not do it. I don't plan to go back to that place or open the door to someone who destroyed her own life. If one day, when my children are adults, they want to go see her, that will be their decision. But I will not take them. Every time I think about everything that happened, I get angry all over again. Samantha erased herself from her children's lives for 10 years. 10 years that will not come back. When she gets out of prison, our daughter will already be 17. And although I don't want to keep hurting myself by thinking about the past, I still find it hard to accept that it all started over something as miserable as envy. All because she wanted to ruin a neighbor's life. Out of pure malice, Samantha destroyed her own life, mine, and those of our children. The only good thing I can take away from all this is that, at least, she is no longer in our lives.